Hi, it's me. From the moment humans first set eyes on them, these enormous, mysterious creatures have been regarded with both wonder and fear. The beluga sturgeon is an absolute giant that has survived since the days of the dinosaurs. But despite its immense size, this gentle giant is in serious trouble. That's why we decided to dedicate this episode of our Mysteries of the Deep series to one of the most amazing but least understood animals on the planet. It's me, and today we'll solve the mystery of the beluga sturgeon. 1. Ancient origins. There are many things that make the beluga sturgeon unique among all the other fish in the world. First and foremost, it's one of the oldest species of fish on the planet. It's been swimming in the oceans and seas for more than 174 million years. In other words, it's a true living fossil. To give you a sense of scale, the animal first appeared in the Jurassic period, which means it was around at the same time as the very first dinosaurs. So when you look at a beluga sturgeon, you're essentially seeing a real living link to the distant past. Like all modern fish, the beluga sturgeon evolved from prehistoric bony fish called placoderms. These ancient fish were the first vertebrates to have jaws, allowing them to develop teeth, tear their prey apart, and thus become a PEX predators of the water column. Today, there are only 2 surviving species of placoderms, both of which belong to the shark family. By the way, scientists also believe that the ancestors of modern sharks were once part of this group of fish. And in fact, they share a common ancestor with them, which lived about 300 million years ago. This was a gigantic armored fish called the Hynerpeton. It could grow up to 9 meters in length and possessed a powerful bite that could easily crush large prey. Obviously, this predator didn't have a skeleton made entirely of cartilage like sharks do, but rather was covered with hard armor like the modern alligator gar. Scientists suggest that the Hynerpeton and its descendants eventually gave rise to both the placoderms and the cartilaginous fish we know today. Among them, by the way, are rays. By the way, if you don't know what the difference between a ray and a shark is, be sure to check out our video. After watching this one, you'll learn a lot of interesting facts about these amazing creatures. 2. Massive scale. The beluga sturgeon is not only one of the oldest species of fish on Earth, it's also one of the biggest. In other words, it's the world's largest freshwater fish. A typical adult beluga reaches a length of up to 6 meters or 20 feet. At the same time, they usually weigh about 1,500 kilograms or 3,300 pounds. But there have been reports of truly gigantic individuals weighing over 3,400 pounds. For comparison, that's the equivalent of a walrus or a young polar bear. And although the beluga sturgeon is primarily a bottom feeder, occasionally it can even rise to the surface of the water column in search of food. Imagine such a huge fish suddenly surfacing right under you while you're sailing on a boat. You'd probably die of fright. If such a massive fish suddenly rose from the depths, it would be absolutely terrifying. In addition, it moves surprisingly quickly for its size. Its maximum speed can reach up to 25 kilometers per hour. When you see how fast a great white shark swims underwater, it looks like a real torpedo. And now imagine a fish of this size moving toward you at such speed, it's enough to scare anyone off. 3. Mysterious habitat. The beluga sturgeon prefers the depths of the Caspian and Black Seas where it spends most of its life. As a rule, it stays at a depth of 50 to 100 meters, but can descend to 200 meters or more. However, it doesn't stay there for long and rises again to the surface. What kind of epic migrations does this fish undertake? The thing is, the beluga sturgeon is a very valuable commercial fish. It's highly prized for its meat and especially for its caviar. For this reason, people have been fishing this species for hundreds of years. Even the Roman historian Pliny the Elder mentioned it in his book, Naturalis Historia. He called the beluga sturgeon a marine monster and described it in detail, saying that it had the body of a pig and a mouth like a crocodile. The thing is, back then, beluga sturgeons were so numerous that fishermen sometimes caught several dozen of these monsters every day. In the 19th century, more than 100,000 poods of beluga sturgeon were harvested annually in the Caspian Sea alone. One pod equals 36 kilograms. With that amount of fish being harvested, it's no surprise that it was considered a common species. For a very long time, the abundance of beluga sturgeon was practically unlimited. But overfishing has changed everything. Now their numbers have sharply declined. Experts say that about 80% of sturgeons caught by fishermen are females carrying eggs. Why is that? Well, back in the early 20th century, scientists realized that the ratio of males to females among beluga sturgeons was 1 to 10. In other words, for every female, there was only one male. This meant that in order to produce offspring, the males had to travel vast distances across the sea in search of their potential partners. As a result, fishermen were catching almost all of the females before they had a chance to spawn. This led to an even greater decline in their numbers. Thus, today there are only a few hundred individuals left in the wild, and this number is decreasing every year. Incidentally, beluga sturgeons haven't spawned successfully in the wild for almost a decade. Although many fish farms have managed to breed them, releasing young sturgeons into the open waters isn't easy because there's virtually no chance they'll survive. The point is that the Caspian and Black Seas are heavily polluted. There are also many ships sailing through these waters, as well as oil platforms. All this poses a serious danger to the young fish. Thus, for the beluga sturgeon, the fight for survival has taken on an even more daunting challenge. 4. Living legend. Although the exact age of the beluga sturgeon is unknown, scientists believe that these fish can live over 100 years. Over its long life, it changes several generations of whales and dolphins. And, although the animal has known no equal among fish for millions of years, it's now on the brink of extinction. The thing is that sturgeons have a unique ability to absorb significant amounts of radioactive substances from the surrounding aquatic environment. This means that after the Chernobyl nuclear disaster, beluga sturgeons born in the river near the power plant absorbed more than 250 times the normal amount of cesium. 137. And here's the paradox. These radioactive emissions killed off most of the fish in the area, but the beluga sturgeon survived without much damage. An individual caught in the Caspian Sea in 2014 was found to contain 5 times more strontium. 9 even is considered safe. And yet the sturgeon didn't suffer from this. Perhaps the ability to tolerate high levels of radiation is just another step in the long process of evolution that turns a fish into a living fossil. But it's still too early to talk about the future of the beluga sturgeon. 5. Critical threat. As already mentioned, the main threat to these ancient fish is us humans. People fish them out in commercial quantities, destroying the species. Also, many sturgeons die after getting tangled up in fishing nets. They aren't able to free themselves and drown. Of course, fishermen pull in the nets with dead fish, but that doesn't happen very often. Most of the time, they discard the sturgeons back into the water, but by that time it's too late. The fish suffers for a long time, but eventually dies. The third reason why beluga sturgeons die is pollution. Oil spills, industrial wastewater, pesticides from agricultural fields, all this enters the rivers and seas, poisoning the water and killing the fish. Sturgeons swallow microplastics along with other food, which gradually accumulates in their bodies and leads to death. Moreover, plastic bags often end up entangled in the sturgeon's gills, causing suffocation. Finally, the fourth factor that threatens their existence is climate change. Rising temperatures make the water warmer, which causes oxygen levels to drop. Sturgeons need cold, well-oxygenated water to survive. Therefore, any changes in temperature and oxygen levels affect them very negatively. And the problem is that all these factors aren't independent of each other. Rather, they reinforce each other, leading to a rapid decline in the population of these ancient fish. The question is, what are we going to do about it? Scientists are doing everything they can to save the species from extinction. Since 1997, Russia, Iran, Kazakhstan, and the Netherlands have worked together to protect the beluga sturgeon. This project includes building artificial spawning grounds, supplying the sturgeons with food, and raising the fish at special stations. Volunteers are also doing a lot to help the sturgeons. In Ukraine, for example, volunteers clean beaches so that the sturgeons can safely lay their eggs. In the meantime, scientists are still desperately trying to breed them in captivity. It's an extremely difficult task because the females are simply unable to reproduce. When kept in aquariums, it turned out that the beluga sturgeon spawns only in the wild. Perhaps this is due to the stress the fish experiences in captivity. But we really hope that sooner or later scientists will manage to solve this problem. What do you think? Will the beluga sturgeon ever repopulate the world's oceans? Or maybe it's better to let nature take its course. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. That's all for today. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more videos about amazing discoveries and mysterious phenomena. And don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed it.